Joining us now, Corey Lewandowski, former campaign manager, Trump campaign 2016, now senior advisor to Trump-Pence 2020. Hey, Corey, great to have you.
Good morning, John. Great to be with you today.
Okay, pandemic. I know you've been spending a lot of time, like all of us, at home with your family. Give us a breakdown here. I mean, President Trump acting faster than anybody imagined. Remember when he was the first one to shut down the airlines and travelers coming in from China? Remember, it was Joe Biden who called him a xenophobe, a racist. He was widely criticized. Now, that was the absolute right thing to do. Corey, can you break this down for us?
You know, John, what we have now seen as a response from our government has been nothing but heroic. And what I mean by that is the early decision by this president, the administration, to reduce the flights coming from overseas, and then taking the swift action, which because we learned from other countries, is imperative in slowing down the curve, is what is going to set the United States apart from the rest of the world. Do we have problems? Of course we do, John. We've seen that thousands of people have been infected by the coronavirus. We know that if you have an autoimmune deficiency, an immune deficiency, or you're an elderly person, you are much more at risk for critical care. So what this president has asked for, and by and large what the American people are responding to, is social distancing, meaning if you don't feel well, don't go into work. If you can work from home, please do so. If you have the opportunity to stay 6 feet away from other individuals for the fear that you may either have the virus and not know it or could potentially catch it from somebody else, the president and the administration is doing everything possible to alert the individuals that we need to control this as quickly as possible. And what we are seeing from other countries is the additional cases of the coronavirus are actually on the downward spiral, new cases. And so by social distancing and by slowing things down in the country right now, we are going to feel the economic impact, but we're going to be vastly better at controlling this pandemic than some of our friends and our allies around the rest of the world.
There's no question about it. If you look at our curve right now, it's a lot better than some of those in Europe that wouldn't take action. We have. Corey, you've been following the rules or following the suggestions, the edicts. So have I. I worked from home the past 7 days. Finally, I got to Richmond. Haven't been in Washington in a week and a half. And, there's a lot of changes being made. Restaurants closed down. A lot of people out of work. Looks like the Senate's got a $1.4 trillion package on the table. It started at 900. Now we understand it's up today to 1.4 trillion. Is that a necessary step? And if we do that, can we get ourselves out of this relatively quickly, you think?
Well, John, it's not just about spending money, because the spend of money is not indicative of our ability to get ourselves out of this. What the spending of money is doing is reassuring the American people that if you don't feel well, don't go into work. And if you're living paycheck to paycheck or you're an hourly employee, the U.S. government is going to make sure you continue to receive the compensation you need so that we are controlling the spread of this pandemic. Very important. Look, my concern as a fiscal conservative always is this bill being bloated and jammed with things that don't directly help the fighting of this pandemic? And I don't know, because it's a massive spending bill. I do think we're going to see industries that are greatly impacted, not just the airline industry and the cruise ship industry, but think about anybody who does business at airports. Those travelers, those small restaurants out of there, those bookstores out of there. Obviously, air travel is way down, so we're going to see all of those places impacted. And moreover, we see even the ride-sharing applications like Lyft and Uber. We've seen that their numbers have dropped off considerably because people don't want to be in close proximity to others that they don't know. So we are going to see an economic downturn. We know the president wants to do everything possible to ensure that the people who are directly impacted on a financial basis are compensated within the right way to do it. But I always worry, John, that we see a $1 trillion spending bill, and who knows what's in it, because we know when the last House bill went through, we know that Speaker Pelosi was trying to fill that with $1 billion for abortion money, which has obviously nothing to do with the coronavirus virus pandemic.
Well, and look, you're also going to get an element of fraud and waste. I mean, that just goes. I think the estimate is no matter what government passes, if it's one of these spending bills, 30 to 35% of it is just fraud. It's just they factor it in. That's how bad it is. But I tell you what, yesterday, Corey, like cockroaches, the K Street lobbyists were running around the halls of Congress trying to get their favorite companies bailed out. One of them is they're asking the president to bail out Las Vegas casinos. Look, I went through this in 2008. Casinos make bajillions of dollars. I mean, why are we bailing out casino? Why is it even part of this thing?
You know, John, what I think what the casinos' argument is that the state is forcing them to close, and I don't think it's. Look, I don't know the specifics, but my larger issue is this: a lot of the people who work at those casinos or at the hotels are hourly employees, and if we need to put money in for the travel and tourism industry, for hotels and restaurants,
right,
that those hourly wage workers are no longer be able to come to work because the occupancy rate in a hotel has dropped in Vegas to probably, I'm making this up, 5% occupancy.
Right.
Then yes, we do need to take care of those hourly wage workers. I don't favor handing a big check over to a casino owner,
right,
who is going to get rich, but I do think we have to take care of the employees,
right,
who are impacted by this. They're two very separate things.
Right. No, you're spot on. I agree with that 100%. You take care of the employees, try to keep them whole. They still have to pay rent. They're living to paycheck. But I think Sheldon Adelman has enough money for now, quite candidly. And having gone through this in 2008, where the beneficiaries were banks, Wall Street, gangster banksters, Goldman Sachs, I've kind of been down that path once. I don't think we want to go down there again. Corey Lewandowski with us, senior advisor, Trump-Pence 2020. Corey, let's get to some politics here, and the politics of the coronavirus. I know nobody wants to talk about it, but it's real, and we have to deal with it. How does this affect the Trump campaign, Trump-Pence 2020, in your view?
Well, John, clearly, the campaign has decided to do virtual events as opposed to doing the large-scale rallies that the president has been known for and accustomed to doing. So we'll be doing virtual events instead so that we can continue to practice that social distancing. And really, for political hacks like myself and many others out there, it's almost put us on a pause. Now, did we follow the debate from a couple nights ago with Biden and Sanders? Of course we did. Do we anxiously await the election results in Florida last night and other places? Of course we did. But it's very difficult as a campaign person when you've got a national problem and an international problem, such as the size and the scope that we're dealing with right now, to be out politicking. And what I mean by that is out bashing your opponent and trying to show the differences between your philosophies and theirs, because by and large, people aren't focused on that. And look, the election is still a fair distance away, and the priority of this administration right now is not, politics. It is people and policy, and that's what this president is doing. And so, from a campaign side, we have the opportunity to work from home, like many other people. We have the opportunity to continue to do conference calls and video conferencing and things like that to talk ideas and strategies. But I don't think you're going to see anybody from the campaign doing bus tours or doing direct interaction with other individuals right now until we know that this pandemic has slowed down.
Corey, let me ask you this. The Trump campaign has spent hundreds of millions of dollars on digital platforms. I mean, they're way ahead of the DNC and the Biden campaign. How much of that, as we go forward in the next, at least, I guess, 6 to 8 weeks in limiting social distancing, how critical will that be?
Well, I think it's very critical because what we're seeing, John, is people are consuming information in a very different manner. And the difference now is with people being in their homes as opposed to their workplace, they're relying more and more on their computers or very candidly, their smartphones to receive their information. And so as they're surfing their smartphones and they're looking at these, what we call pre-roll ads, they're forced ads that you're required to watch if you want to go to a certain website. Maybe they're 15 seconds, maybe they're 30 seconds. That's going to be the opportunity to directly interact with those individuals on the campaign side. and it should give us a large advantage. Well, we now know that Joe Biden is going to be the Democratic nominee. It looks like he secured enough delegates based on his elections last night. The truth is, direct communication with individuals has always been a comparative advantage that the campaign has had because we've had the opportunity to build it over the last 4 years, and we've done a very good job of that. So we will see that come to fruition now over the next 3 and 4 months when less and less people are interacting and when more and more people are focused on the news of the day, which seems to be the stock market and our response to the coronavirus.
And every day, Corey, we're getting the updates. They're coming almost by the minute. Who got infected with it? Some celebrity did. How many people in what state? How many people died? What the futures are doing in Europe. And I was commenting earlier, I just want to get your take on this. Coming up here today to Richmond, I was about 2 hours in the car between 4 and 6 a.m. I had on Bloomberg News. Then I switched to CNN on the news. All I got was doomsday reporting. I mean, you would have thought after this 2 hours, the world was going to end at 6 p.m. I mean, everybody just running around with their hair on fire. The media companies trying to one-up each other on bad news. Is this part of the issue, fueling the hysteria, why people are wiping stores out?
Well, look, I think, the president talked about this a little bit, and what he said was, hey, do your neighbors a favor and don't go and stockpile things that you don't need because obviously the stores right now are doing everything they can to resupply as quickly as possible. And I do think at the onset, the media fed into this narrative that the world was coming to an end immediately, and that didn't help the case. Mm-hmm. And now what we've seen, John, in full credit to Dana Bash at CNN,
right.
She praised the president's response. For Governor Cuomo of New York, he has praised the president and this administration's response. Same with Gavin Newsom in California. Mm-hmm. Not traditional allies of this president, to be clear.
Right.
But when you've got two leading Democratic governors of big states like New York and California, respectively, saying that the team in this administration has been available morning, noon, and night to respond and help them deal with this, that should cut across partisan lines, obviously, and it should allow the mainstream media to say, hey, you know what? We know we're all in this together, but it looks like this administration has stepped up to this challenge, and let's try and quell the fears of some of the people. We saw that Kevin Durant, the basketball player, has coronavirus, and you're right, John. It looks like every minute of every day now, we're seeing another person who is diagnosed with this. And remember, and your listeners have to remember this, just because you're diagnosed with the coronavirus doesn't mean you have a fatal infliction. If you are a healthy individual, you are going to, by and large, be fine. The concern is for those people who are elderly or have an immune problem in their system or have recently come out of a surgery and aren't fully up to par. So, look, we're going to see thousands or tens of thousands of people infected with this virus. But that does not mean that a guy like Kevin Durant, who is a famous basketball player, who I would assume is a fairly healthy individual, is at risk of dying because he's caught this virus. And so this is a serious influenza-like virus that directly impacts those people who are either elderly or have an immune deficiency, which can't fight off the virus as quickly as possible. So we know that, but we also have to stop the potential panic and recognize that whether you like or don't like this administration, by every account, from the Democrat governors to the Republican governors, they're saying that this administration is doing everything possible to aid the people of this country.
Corey Lewandowski with us. He's senior advisor now to the Trump campaign, Pence Trump 2020. Corey, let's go to November. A lot of our listeners very concerned. Look, if you're a Trump supporter a month ago, right? Trump was going to win in a landslide. Economy was booming. We got the new jobs numbers out. They were incredible. They were 30% over what anybody thought they'd be. Consumer spending and confidence was up. Every indicator was positive. The trade deals, the tariffs with China were working. Economy was pumping on 8 cylinders. Now, not so much. We're talking about recession, depression, etc. Honestly, as an advisor of the campaign, what is this going to do to Trump 2020's re-election chances? I know it's an uncomfortable question during a crisis.
No, John, it's a very fair question, right? And you've always been very fair. And look, I think any outside observer or those on the inside are looking at the way the president is handling this and making the determination, are we going to be better off, because of the leadership of this president or not? And look, this president has been the economy president. We have seen under his administration in the last 3.5 years, record growth in the stock market. But in the last month, we've seen that record growth get rescinded. We've seen the Dow now drop somewhere between 25 and 35%. There was another wild swing yesterday with the Dow up 1,000, and down 3,000 the day before that. So we've got clearly investor concerns. Mm-hmm. That means the American people are concerned. And so, look, did I like our position in February when the Dow was continuing to reach record levels about the president's reelection effort? You bet I did. Did we ever for 1 second rely on our laurels and sit back and say this thing is in the bank? Never, never, never. Does this potentially make it more difficult? Well, sure it does. But I still like to look at the totality of what this president's been able to accomplish. The deregulation, the rebuilding of our military, the renegotiation of bad trade deals, all of those things factor into hopefully a voter's decision in November to go to the ballot box and decide who they're going to support. And look, we have to see the next 60 to 90 days is going to be critical. If the American people listen to the administration and they continue the social distancing, and we see this curve dramatically fall off, which is what the experts are telling us. Fauci and the experts are telling us that. If we adhere to that and we get a quick recovery, obviously it's going to help. And we now see that the president has authorized significant amounts of money to be pumped into the system, including the purchase to fill the strategic petroleum reserves at rock-bottom prices right now. Gas is, I think, at a 17-year low. So, look, we have to make sure we're doing everything. But, John, I think it's just too early to see what the overall impact of the coronavirus is on the economy and on our country. But, that's where we're going, and that's what people are going to look at when they show up at the ballot box.
Exactly. Corey Lewandowski, I think you're right. I'm thinking 6-8 weeks, this is over. I would hate to see this drag on into the summer. I mean, right now, obviously, people are hurting on spring break. You just feel sorry for all these little shopkeepers and everything else, and small businesses, small bars that don't really have the resources. Hopefully, this $1.4 trillion that we're going to pass in some way is going to be an asset to them. But the fear that everybody has is this thing drags on, this self-quarantine, everything stays closed into the summer. There's a lot of people depend on that as well. So hopefully we can get through this. But look, bottom line, I've only got a minute. The president has done everything possible to make this as successful of a time as he can, from getting the money to stopping the flights from China to now banning flights from Europe, giving the governors and the mayors the power to do whatever they want, decentralizing it. Now we're going to have a spending bill. I don't know what more he can do.
Look, John, I don't know what more to do either, but whatever we can do, we must do, right? That's what it comes down to. Whatever we can do to stop this from continuing, we must do, which means we unite as a country. We're the strongest, greatest country in the world. We put partisan politics aside right here. We make sure that the states have the resources they need, that they have the respirators and the testing kits available for every state, so that if people feel that they have a virus or they're contaminated, they go and get tested, and then they're self-quarantining. That's what we must do. But at the end of the day, John, we can only do that with the help of the American people, who have to understand the severity of what is transpiring right now.
Corey Lewandowski, thank you for being with us, Corey. We always appreciate the time. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you.
John Fredericks Radio Network.